everybody. Welcome to Meet Me in the Kitchen. My name is Connie Spiros, and as I like to say, every time you're in my kitchen, I'm your host for 30 minutes of some great cooking. We hope you think that. I'm here today with a special guest, Dr. Monique Tello. Thank you for being with me, Monique.
Thank you for having me.
And she's a physician at Mass General Hospital. She's an adult primary care physician, so she sees a lot of different things in her business, I'm sure. But today she's also playing the person who's written a great book, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. She's a busy mom. You have 2 children. How old are your kids?
Ages 7 and 8.
Oh boy, young and very, very active, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yes. And she is a blogger. She has a blog called generallymedicine.com, which you can talk about a little bit later. Yeah. And she's a writer of a book, and this is now the book that I want to talk to you about. It is called Healthy Habits for Your Heart. I do want to show the book because what I do when I really like a cookbook, or it's not a cookbook, it's a book, a lifelong learning book. I put my little 3Ms, which I buy lots of these. I do recycle them though. I want to use them over and over again. So don't think I use these in every book and then throw them away. This book is filled with ideas, and they're very simple ideas of what you need to do or what you should do to live a healthy, happy life. And so we're going to pick on some of these particular topics in a minute, but what I want to do while I'm getting started with the first recipe, which is a super simple cashew stir fry. It's from the back of the book. So the book has all kinds of great tips, and then it has a section on recipes.
Recipes, heart-healthy recipes.
Which are wonderful. So while we're opening things, and I'm going to measure and put, and you're going to stir, talk about why you decided to write the book.
Oh, yeah. So as a physician, I'm giving health advice to patients one-on-one in this little closed exam room, and I realized I was repeating a lot of the same concepts over and over again, because we know very well what helps to prevent heart disease, dementia, cancer, and it's a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. So I got interested in writing about this material because I get excited about it. I like to talk about it, but I kind of want to get the message out there to a larger audience because I'm repeating myself. So I got a gig writing for Harvard Health Blog. Oh. So Harvard Health Blog has a huge following, and they wanted physicians to write about evidence-based medical topics, but translate it for the general public in a way that would be useful, like useful health information. And I said, sign me up.
Sign me up is right. Wow.
So I started writing for Harvard Health Blog, mostly covering research studies that come out about diet and lifestyle. And that's sort of my gig, but covering just about anything that they need covered.
While you were working with your patients, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it all kind of relate. I mean, if I would cover a study for them, I would then be able to talk about it to my patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it came really handy.
Yes.
And then Adams Media, which is an imprint of Simons and Schuster, was looking for, this is how it works nowadays. They come up with their book idea, and then they go looking for an author.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, it's a new thing.
And there you were.
And there I was. So they literally Googled, they wanted a doctor who could write. They didn't want a doctor who needed a ghostwriter. They wanted a doctor who could write.
Who could actually do it.
Yeah, who could then write an evidence-based heart health how-to book, basically like a self-help book, but like more health and wellness based. And I was like, sign me up. Okay.
This is so amazing how this happened.
I know.
So how long did it take you to do this? Let me just take a break and say, we're cooking while she's talking. There are 2 tablespoons of roasted sesame oil, which
lots of flavor in that.
Okay, so that's what we're looking to do, is bump up the flavor, because healthy doesn't have to be, like paper. You want it to have great flavor, and sesame oil has a great flavor.
It does, and it has a good ratio of healthy fat, so it's fine. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I can only use olive oil. No, actually, there's a lot of oils you can use that are perfectly fine.
Oh,
you don't want to use a ton of any oil,
right? So we're going to use,
totally fine. Yeah.
And this is like a family recipe that we're making. We're going to have a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah.
So to the 2 tablespoons of sesame oil, I had no idea this existed. Tubes of garlic.
Oh, yeah.
Who knew? And tubes of ginger.
Time saving.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
Yeah.
So I put in 1 teaspoon of garlic paste and 2 teaspoons of ginger paste. And they're right in the produce section. I was shopping yesterday. I had just bought, ooh, watch out because you're going to you're going to be wearing this any minute. She's got a pretty outfit on
This
that she
thing
doesn't
gets
want to
hot.
do
You
that.
said it didn't get hot.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's getting really hot.
It's getting really hot. I'm going
Yeah.
to lower it actually. So what I'm going to do now, so I don't have to lower it, is throw in the veggies, right? The veggies go in.
Just throw them right in. I've got it, so all you have to do is just throw in 2 bags of frozen vegetables.
And talk a
You don't have
little
to
bit.
measure the cups. Just throw them right in there.
And these are 10-ounce bags, and
Yep.
this is from the grocery store. You know, the best thing about frozen is they're as close to fresh as you can have. And
Yep.
so this is like the answer to coming home from work and making dinner, right?
Yeah.
And making dinner with something that is really as close to fresh as you ever will. You want to start with them being frozen.
Yeah, you just take them out of the freezer. You don't have to do any prep whatsoever. And this is fine. This is valid. You can feel good about this because
Right.
the vegetables are usually frozen at their peak of freshness.
Right, right. That's the key.
And these did not have a sauce or anything on them. They're unsalted.
So you want to make sure you don't put one of those packets of whatever they might have of or spicy mixes. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
some of these frozen veggies will come with little sauce mix.
Yeah.
I have found a lot of them, especially if they're a thicker sauce, like a General Gao's sauce or something, has a lot of corn syrup in it. So
Right.
you're all of a sudden you're adding sugar to your meal. You don't really need that. And some
Right.
of them will just have a really super high sodium content. You want to keep that as low as you can, but still have some flavor.
Some flavor to it. So we're about to take our first break because you don't need to watch these cook. We'll show you what they look like afterward. But we are going to add let me see here, 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. You always want to use the low sodium soy sauce because it's loaded otherwise, right?
Yep. Or you can use liquid aminos here. A lot of people like to substitute the liquid aminos.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of a different flavor and a little bit of a different. One's completely vegan, or one's completely gluten free, and one's not. So soy sauce sometimes has a little bit of gluten in it.
Right, it does. And then we're going to add at the very end some cashews. So we're going to take a break right now, finish cooking, and we'll show you what we've got when we finish. When we come back. Hi, welcome back to Meet Me in the Kitchen. I am Connie Spiros, and in my kitchen today is Dr. Monique Tello. She's a physician at Mass General Hospital, and she is someone who's written a great book, which we're going to show you again at the end of the show. But we finished our stir fry, and I have to tell you, I don't use frozen vegetables a lot because I'm retired and I cut my vegetables and do all that stuff. This is amazing. It tastes fabulous. So the last piece of it, though, is to put in...
Yeah, so we try to be as plant-based as possible at home. We're probably about 50% vegan. And everybody always says, what do you do for protein? How do you get a filling meal if you're not using meat? And I always like to point out there's lots of plant protein out there, people, and it's good for you. So cashews, especially, super healthy. And a good source of both healthy polyunsaturated fats as well as protein, very filling, crunch, taste, everything. And we're all supposed to be eating about 21 grams of nuts and seeds a day. It's a little less than a quarter of a cup a day.
Wow.
For the best heart health.
So the point is not to overdo, because I know when I get a can of nuts, I'm eating the whole thing.
And you want to get unsalted.
Unsalted,
Definitely
yeah.
unsalted.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and you don't want to eat the whole thing just because they're calorie dense. They're not bad for you.
Right.
They're just high in calories.
So we're going to serve this with brown rice, which was frozen,
Whole grain, yep.
all cooked, right, in advance. While we're getting ready for this next piece, though, I do want to just sort of make fun of myself, because I do like to do that occasionally. When Monique said, let's talk about edamames, because edamames are this great bean, plant protein that you can use. So I went to the store and I bought whole edamames in the pod. Because I remember going, like, this was a big thing at restaurants for an appetizer.
It's like a little appetizer.
They're
thing,
like,
yes.
you microwave these, and they are the most amazing little taste. So,
But it was the biggest revelation to
not
me
what you
when I
meant.
realized they sell edamame frozen, shelled. And a half cup of edamame has about 12 grams of protein.
Whoa.
So it's, again, quick and easy,
Wow.
a great source of plant protein and fiber. It's super good for you.
wow, that's amazing. Okay, I'm going to put you to work here. Before we get you to switch gears and talk, we're going to talk about chicken and protein, meat protein. The next recipe is chicken with sugar snap peas and spring herbs. Now this is a recipe from Eating Well magazine. Do you use Eating Well? Have you looked at Eating Well at all? Or
I love all cooking magazines. We don't really subscribe to any just because, but whenever I see one around, I'll pick it up. I steal them from hospital waiting rooms sometimes. If I see a good recipe.
The benefits of being a doctor, right? You're in the waiting room.
I'm just going to borrow that.
Sure.
Yeah, I love to peruse and get ideas.
Great.
So you get like inspiration from these magazines that you can then go home and like do something with it.
So this looks like it has a lot of ingredients. It kind of does. It's not exactly the quickest recipe, but it has great flavor. And so one of the things that I was talking about earlier was healthy eating doesn't have to be like cardboard. It can be really, really, really very flavorful. And this particular recipe, and I'm going to start to have you measure 1 cup of chicken broth. And low sodium chicken broth is what I always use.
Yeah.
This one happens to be 70 milligrams.
No salt added. It's
no
great,
salt added.
yeah.
So, and you don't miss it because the key to this recipe is there's only 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. And it is, you know what, we're going to put that in a bowl.
Okay.
Sorry, let me go off camera here for 1 second. We're going to put that right here in this bowl.
Okay.
So we're going to make our sauce first. 1 cup of chicken broth. And to that, we are going to add mustard. And I use Grey Poupon grainy mustard. And I need to just find the one that has it in there.
Okay.
And there's a spoon for you if you want to just pop that in there. 1 tablespoon of olive oil for 4 servings. So very little fat. That's the only fat that's in the recipe. But to get the flavor going, we're going to maximize it with all kinds of herbs. Fresh herbs, which are starting to grow now. It's spring, sort of. But anyway, so we're starting with the sauce first, and we're going to get that all ready. So that is 2 teaspoons of grainy mustard, Dijon, 1 cup of reduced sodium chicken broth, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I never use that much salt, but I don't like to not use salt. Sorry.
Give it a little bit.
So I do this, a pinch.
Totally fine.
And that's like a pinch. That's like less than whatever. It's less than 1/8 of a teaspoon. But I can't do without. Whoops, just touched it. And a little bit of pepper, freshly ground pepper, which is fine, right? Ground pepper is good.
You can have all the pepper, and most spices, herbs and spices, go crazy with those.
That's
a lot
great.
of antioxidants in there.
Oh, who knew? I didn't know that. And then the last thing we're going to put in here is 2 tablespoons of flour. Now, I am using white flour. You could easily use whole wheat flour. Can you give that a nice little stir? It's going to thicken our sauce. And in the meantime, I'm going to put the heat on here. Excuse me. Get that pan working again as it was before. And we're going to take some chicken. And I bought thin cutlets because, again, the idea is the protein, thank you, the protein that we're using is chicken. We don't need a lot, but I love chicken. So I'm actually going to put a tablespoon of flour on this plate, and I'm going to lightly dust, and again, you could use whole wheat, whole grain is fine, whole wheat flour. I'm going to lightly just dust it, and I'm going to also get some oil going in this pan. So we're going to put 1 tablespoon of oil. And this is one of the things I've learned is you need to measure. Because I go, and all of a sudden it's 3 tablespoons of oil. That's the way people do it. But when you're really watching,
Are you ready for it?
Go for it.
You ready for it?
Go
Okay,
for it.
right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're
I
gonna get
still
that.
just go.
You do?
Yeah, totally-
Okay. You heard it from the doc. The doctor's in the house. She says we can do it. I'm
It's
good.
olive oil. You're good.
It's olive oil. That's right. That's right. So I love that. We could
You're
do
not
this
you're not gonna have like a half cup per serving, and it's just still gonna be just a little bit
for 4 people,
so
right?
You can
It's
give
not,
or take
it's not a big deal. I'm going to put some. Okay, I've got the flour in the around the chicken, and I'm going to get this in the pan. Now it should be hot and sizzly, but we're going to get it started, and it will start sizzling really quickly. So talk a little bit about how to manage the process of adding chicken to your menu or adding meat protein to your menu.
Yeah, so people always think they need more meat than they do from a health perspective. So just cutting down a little bit on the meat in a recipe and adding more vegetables is a great way to just begin to move in a more plant-based, heart-healthy direction. So it definitely, there's a lot of vegetables that are going to be incorporated in this dish. You can also be serving it alongside some whole grain. And just always thinking about how to bring more plants into the diet. And minimize the meat protein as much as possible.
Right. The USDA that does all these, public service announcements on how to put your plate together, and they'll take a plate and they'll say, fill it like at least half full with vegetables.
Yep.
And but I have to have a little meat. I hate to say this. I am a meat person. I have to have this little bit of meat. So I bought thin cutlets because they are just a small piece of
It's
chicken.
kind of like the perfect serving.
And it is the perfect serving. So
Just
that's
one cutlet,
1
yeah.
pound for 4 people. So it's not a lot of chicken, but you'll feel like you're eating
great.
chicken, and you'll feel very good about it if you're like me, somebody who loves chicken. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rest of the menu, but I'm going to ask you actually to read from your book one of your habits that you talk about developing. So the point of this book, I think, is as the reader, is to come up with a habit that you know you should be doing, but then figure out how to live with it and make it stick. So I'm going to let you do that while I...
The entire first half of the book is how the psychology of habits, like how to create a habit, what might be the obstacles to creating habits. And then the second part of the book goes into specific heart-healthy habits. And Connie asked me to choose one that might be especially relevant today. And honestly, number 46, habit number 46 of 100 healthy habits, is make regular and recurring meal choices. And we do this at home because I'm super busy. My husband works, he travels for work. We've got the 2 kids. If you need to put together a grocery list, it's never going to happen.
Right.
So when we go to the grocery store, we know exactly what are our go-to meals. And it's like automatic. I know I need to get the frozen vegetables for the stir fry. I know we're probably going to need some cashews or some frozen edamame. I know we're going to need the pre-cooked frozen brown rice. You just throw it right in the cart. Don't even need to think about it because that's a go-to at least once a week recipe.
That's the key. Don't think about it.
Make things
just
a habit.
do it. Right. I'm flipping over the chicken. And we are going to add to this dish some artichoke hearts and sugar snap peas. Thank you. And then I've got fresh dill and fresh chives. Chives grow in your garden. They'll come back. We put them in the garden, I think, 3 years ago, and they come back every year. So think about that, having that in your garden, because you'll get something nice and fresh every year without even thinking about it. So the chicken's going to take a little bit of time, so we may take a break here, but I'm going to just show you a little bit about snap peas. Snap peas are available in kind of a short window in the spring, but they're unbelievably fresh. And what I want to show you is just, you eat with your eyes, as they say. Instead of putting this whole big thing in there, I like to slice them at an angle. So when you slice them at a diagonal, the peas are kind of just looking at you, and they're saying, have me. Take a taste. It's springtime. So I told you I was goofy. Everybody knows when they watch the show I'm goofy. So when you look at this, you want to eat those. And so we're going to put them in later because we don't want them to get really, really overcooked. We want them to be bright and green and fresh. So we are going to take a break here, and we will be back and finish up this dish in a minute. Welcome back to Meet Me in the Kitchen. I am here today with Monique Tello, who is a physician at Mass General Hospital. We have made the chicken. We've suggested that you not have too much chicken, that you focus on the plants. So now we're going to focus on the plant portion of this recipe. We have the pan. We took the chicken out. It's nice and golden brown. We're going to add to it the sauce, which is, whoa, nice and hot. We love that.
Yeah.
So the sauce has got mustard in it. I love mustard for flavor. What is mustard a good thing? Any thoughts about
It's right up there with herbs and spices. So it's really, there's not much bad in mustard. It's mostly just ground mustard seeds.
Great,
So
great.
I think you're good.
Great. And it adds so much flavor, I think, that you don't have to do a lot of other flavors.
Most
so.
of the condiments you're not using too much of.
Right.
Ketchup might be an exception depending on the person. And there can be a little bit of sugar in that. So just
seriously? Oh, I never think about that with ketchup. So I put in the broth mixture. I'm about to add the snap peas and the artichoke hearts. I'm going to put artichoke hearts in first. Now, artichoke hearts I know are salty, so I rinse them.
They can be. Yeah, I'm sure different brands have different amounts of sodium and rinsing them. And the same thing with canned beans. So canned beans, if you just can't find no salt added or low sodium, you can rinse them, and that'll get a lot of the salt off.
Wow, okay, I never knew that. That's great to know. The snap peas, I'm putting in, so that's 1 can of artichoke hearts. This is 2 cups of sugar snap peas, and we have sliced them at that diagonal, and they take very little time, and you want them, look how pretty that is, huh?
It is. That is
like the stir fry was, the gorgeous colors. We want them to be sort of high heat, but not for very long. So we're gonna do that, and then the last thing that's going to go in off the heat will be the chives and dill, and I used a combination of 3 tablespoons combined. You can use chives, dill, tarragon, any kind of herbs. Fresh herbs always go at the end, with a little bit of vinegar. And now the thing with vinegar is you need to do it off heat because sometimes it will turn the snap peas a little yellowy.
Totally, yeah.
So I have to be careful to really do that almost before you're going to finish. You're going to eat. So I'm going to put the chicken back in. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
You
I
hold the
can
plate,
totally
or
do
you
that.
do that.
Yeah.
You do that. And we're going to put the chicken back in just so that it continues to cook if it needs to. Although it's so thin that it's not. Now I
It'll get a
will
little
say
saucy.
thin, and we get all that good juice from it too. The thin chicken is expensive, so I usually buy chicken breasts that are huge and slice them. But it's a real skill to try and get them even. So I do go sometimes and buy them. It's like $9 a pound for organic thin chick cutlets. So look how beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great. I would have just kind of thrown them in, Monique, but you've got that thing going. Excellent. So I'm going to just make sure that I think everything is cooked at this point. We may want to try one of these little snap peas. I don't know if you're a snap pea fan, but
Yeah.
we're going to give it a try. And
Got it.
crunchy.
I
That's
like
what
them
we
like
want.
that.
I do too. We're going to leave them like that.
Really
so we're going to
good.
shut off the, as we both talk with our mouths full. We're going to throw that, shut off the heat, sprinkle the chives, and the dill. Make sure you get all that good stuff in there. And the last thing we're going to do is add 2 teaspoons of white wine vinegar. I've got a teaspoon right here. We'll use this. Now this, if you wanted to, could you do brown rice on the bottom of this as well if you needed to have a starch?
Sure, you could do any whole grain. Whole grains are just better.
Yeah, talk about other whole grains besides rice.
So we use a lot of quinoa because it just cooks so simply. It's just easy, you know. And we always cook more than we need and then freeze some because you can, similarly, you can buy already cooked frozen brown rice from Wegmans. You can also, just at home, just make a whole bunch of something and then keep it there and then microwave it for when you need it.
That's fabulous.
And that's totally fair.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, we're going to just run right into our chocolates.
Yeah.
So we've got time to do some dessert. So, dark chocolate. Talk about dark chocolate.
Ah, yes. So there's thankfully a lot of research evidence showing that dark chocolate is particularly heart healthy. Again, it's calorie dense, so you can overdo it. The good thing is that dark chocolates, it's so intense and flavorful that most people aren't tempted to eat a ton of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so you want it 60% cacao or greater, which is a pretty strong chocolate. So the higher, the better. And you want to probably have about 2 or 3 of these size squares, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and that'll give you your week's recommended portion. Like this is recommended.
This is recommended to eat chocolate. Did you hear that? And from a doctor. So I have a friend who is a diabetic, and when we go for lunch, on the way out to the car, she'll say, "Are you ready for some dessert?" And I'll say, "We just left the restaurant." And she'll open up a little tin of dark chocolate, and we'll each have a piece of dark chocolate. And you'd be amazed at how dark chocolate just satisfies that sweet tooth that you need, even though it's not as sweet.
Perfect dessert. Yeah.
So we
just
did
to
not
end
use
the meal.
We did not use blocks. We used
Chips are just easier to
chips,
melt.
right? And so talk a little bit about the time process for melting these now.
Yeah, so chocolate famously burns super easily, and the way I usually do it is exactly like this. In the microwave, adding a little teaspoon of oil. Connie uses grapeseed oil, and she's going to talk about that. And then microwaving it in no longer than 30-second increments, sometimes even less if I feel like it's getting close. Because if you go over just a little bit, it turns into this weird
sticky,
burned
burning
tasting
stuff.
mess.
How does that? I think maybe another 30, maybe 15 seconds.
I actually would go lower than, I think.
It's like, okay, so we're going to look at that for 10 seconds. So one of the things I use the grapeseed oil for is the flavor. I don't want it to mess up the flavor of the chocolate.
It has no flavor.
Has no flavor. It's light and has absolutely no flavor. So we're going to take that out at 10 seconds, and let's see. I think this is it. Yeah, this is getting there, right?
Yeah. This is the this is probably an almost, but the thing is that the bowl gets a little warm.
Right, and so it will continue
continues to melt.
So that looks like it's, I would be afraid to put it in any longer.
Yeah, for dipping, I do sometimes get it a little more liquidy.
Okay, so let's try it. Okay.
It's just a little thick. And sometimes if you feel like you need to add a teensy bit more
oil,
we did 1 teaspoon. This was like a whole bag of chips, I think. We did 1 teaspoon here, and sometimes you might need a teensy bit more, and that's
Okay.
okay. It just helps to get that good consistency with the melting,
Yep.
so that it's that much easier to dip
Just
your
dip the chocolate.
whatever. Actually,
Dip the
you could dip bananas in there. You could do blackberries. This is a popular thing in our home. The kids are always like, "What can we dip in chocolate?"
Their fingers, whatever, right?
Well, that too. Somebody has to get the bowl, somebody has to get the spoon, and then they fight.
Oh, I love that.
What?
I love that.
Yeah.
So my microwave, I think, is getting on the fritz here too, but this looks like it's better.
I think that's good.
I think that's going to be
Now
good.
you've got no more chunks and
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's a little bit. It's still sort of thick, but I'm afraid to go much beyond that. So know that you want to, my microwave is not as great as it used to be in its whole days. So we won't worry about that right now. But we are going to take a cookie sheet with some parchment paper. And I washed the strawberries in advance, because you said you want them dry, really dry.
Yes, that's the other thing. The chocolate won't stick to wet things. So you want your berries, if you're using them, to be clean, but pat them dry. Literally, we just use a clean dish towel and just kind of pat them dry.
Okay, good. So I'll hold these. You show us the concept with one.
So the kids would probably say, "I want the biggest one." So here's the biggest one. So can you? So what you want to do is get just your strawberry kind of bathed in chocolate, and then you just kind of let it drip a little bit, and that's basically the easiest dessert ever.
Gosh, I love it. Do a couple more so I can watch them get bathed.
And if you want, then you can also sprinkle chopped nuts on them to make them extra pretty. Oh. And how much do these get sold for? You know, that company that does chocolate chip strawberries?
Oh, tons of money. You're right.
You're saving so much money if you just do it at home.
I love this. Oh, so I bet in the wintertime you could take orange slices.
You could do orange slices. Again, anything that you can dip in chocolate. That's not cookies.
Oh, that's not cookies. Okay, the doctor came out now. That is perfect. Okay, we are good. Now, I want to ask you to talk a little bit. We've got a couple of minutes left. We're going to finish up by telling you, first of all, healthy eating can be tasty eating, right?
Yeah.
The key to it is, you talked about plant-based as much as possible.
Yeah, so trying different recipes, discovering what you like, and sticking with what you like a little bit. Using plenty of herbs and spices, because you can do that endlessly without any problem at all. Minimizing the salt. The more herbs and spices you use, the less salt you need.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I love the idea of the routines. That's the key. Make it a routine. Come up with several recipes that you're comfortable with, and don't even think about, when you have the time on vacation, look at cookbooks or go online. Then you can experiment
like crazy.
Right. But make your life easier. And I think that's the success, right? To doing whatever.
If it's not easy, people aren't going to do it.
Right. So. Monique, thank you so much for being on the show with us. So the recipes can be accessed by emailing me at cdspiros@comcast.net. Hopefully that's on the screen. Dr. Monique Tello, great book, Healthy Habits for Your Heart. Please do. It's on Amazon. I bought it on Amazon. It's a great lifesaver, literally. So thanks so much for being with us. I'll see you in the kitchen next time.